If there's questions, pass the mic.
As someone who is on Facebook, I guess I've come to like it.
Right.
But I'm often asked, because I'm a younger person, oh, can you show me how that Twitter thing works? And I'm like, okay, I'm not on Twitter, but let me do my best. So as someone who's trying to follow the trend for the sake of being professional, really,
Right.
who do you recommend? What's a good example of someone who's using Twitter effectively or using Facebook effectively? Is there some arts organization who's really, hitting that delicate balance between not dumbing down, but being accessible?
Yeah. I think on Facebook, my favorite person on Facebook by a factor of about 1 million is Jerry Saltz. Right? Okay. Because he is promoting actual conversation among actual thousands of people on actual topics of interest in a way that no other of his media outlets enables him to do, and in a way that seems to be of genuine interest to him. I mean, by all accounts, Roberta cannot drag him off that computer. He loves what he's doing, right? So, and I think he actually is one of the few individual users who successfully fought their 5,000 friend cap on Facebook, so that, because he sort of managed to convince them that even though he had set it up as a personal account, that it was really this, journalism thing. And so I love what he does, because by the time you hear about it, there's 300 comments already. That is a conversation. Oh my God, right? So, but it's never stupid. Even when it's a little frivolous, it's not dumb. And so I think Jerry Saltz is my Facebook hero. On Twitter, it's a little bit not quite germane to today, but I think that it's one of the 826, one of the McSweeney's authors. It's not Dave Eggers. The name is escaping me. I'm really sorry, but the handle is Electric Lit, and they tweet 140 character short stories. Right? Once a day, and it's sort of like she had just exited the crosswalk when she heard the screech of tires and the thud. Right? There's your short story for the day. And it's this amazing thing, and I think that is sort of maybe from the world of books, but that I really like that, because it's embracing the technology in a way that's sort of witty, but not silly.
I loved what you said about the great disconnect. I live in a town that has a pretty prolific amount of galleries as well as an art walk. And the gallerists really resent the art walk because the people that come in have no context for what they're coming in for.
She's not even talking about downtown.
No. You can probably fill in the dots if you know me. Yeah. But and the city thinks it's an art, it's a lifelong learning experience. So there's a huge disconnect there. And it's all about meeting people where they are. And so one of the suggestions that I had to one of the cultural affairs commissioners is do something prior to the art walk, where maybe you could even participate, where you have folks who are interested in coming to the art walk. It won't be everybody, but some of the people really do want to understand that whole system. Galleries are businesses. And so when people come into the galleries, the people behind the counter, who are usually art historians and professionals, are hoping that they're going to sell artwork. And people are coming there like they're going to Disneyland on the art walk day. And so maybe just meeting them, getting some questions from the general person who's actually interested enough to step out and walk into the gallery and taking that risk, and then addressing that in a talk would start to break down that disconnect. And so that's the kind of thing that I think about when you're talking about meeting people where they are, or bringing the mountain to Mohammed. So,
yeah, no, thanks. Definitely. Well, I think, art walks, and I live on 5th and Main, okay? So I have my own personal opinion about it, which goes something like this. Good for them. I'm going to Hollywood tonight, right? But, I've talked to a lot of my friends, are gallerists, and especially downtown, and they call it, public education night, but they don't kind of mean that in a good way, right? And I think it's sort of like one of these things where if I really could, I would just tell people that own galleries to like get over it, because they're all the rest of the month they complain that they don't get any foot traffic. And, you know, would you rather live in a world where once a month or once a quarter it was too freaking crowded in your art gallery neighborhood? And then in other words, it doesn't have to be for me to have value to our culture. Okay, I don't need the art walk. I don't like the art walk. I'm glad that it happens because a lot of other people do. And that it's among those things, it proves to the various economic powers that be that art is as much of an economic stimulator in our neighborhood as the film business. But without really, it's annoying once a month, but the film business is annoying every single day, including holidays and weekends. And they're doing shootouts on rooftops at 9 a.m. And why are they doing that? Because the neighborhood needs the revenue. I would rather that they get their revenue from crazy people drinking beer on the street once a month, not really looking at art. And I know like Dean Valentine isn't going to go to the art walk, but he isn't going to go even if there's a docent tour. Because the people that are sort of operating on that level, you know, they go on Mondays. I mean, they don't even go like during hours practically. So, you know, that's kind of one of these like catastrophic successes where, for better or worse, visual art culture has become another mainstream hipster scene in our city. And it's sort of like, isn't that what we wanted, you guys? Sorry, you know, right? Like this new magazine I'm working for called LA Canvas is food, art, fashion, and film. Food, art, fashion, and music, right? Did you ever envision a time when art would be on that list of food, fashion, and music in indie culture in LA? Well, it is now. And that's partly because of these things that are, you know, alienating the core audience, right? But all that happens is they just don't go that day. People don't stop going to galleries because the art walk is annoying. They just are annoyed on that one day. And my real true feeling is, like, get over it. I mean, not you, but like, not like get over it, Inez, but I just mean that the people who profess to be irritated by it, I think, should really, you know, count their blessings and find something else to be irritated about, because it really was so much worse when we were just being ignored.
From your vantage point and as an art critic, and do you see the gravity of the LA arts community pulling in influences from Europe or from the East Coast? I mean, where do we stand with regards to major art movements recently, say from the East or from overseas?
This is the common wisdom right now is that LA is the art production capital of the world, and London is the art market capital of the world. And that, you know, it used to be different. It used to be that New York was both the production and market capital. And these things switch. But I think it's almost the opposite. What actually happens is that there's a tremendous amount of the most influential and powerful and talented artists in the world come here to live and work but don't show here. And you know, that is a little odd, but also what's happening is New York galleries, Chicago galleries, London galleries, Tokyo galleries are obsessed with showing Los Angeles artists. I mean, obsessed. And part of the reason I have friends who are sort of, you know, A-list LA artists, and they tell me that they don't have a gallery here because it limits their ability to do sort of group shows and projects with their friends and neighbors here at home because there's jealousies and contractual problems. So they just show everywhere else in the entire world instead. And that maybe that can be sort of hard for Angelinos to follow, but that is absolutely what is happening. That LA artists are the darlings of the art fair circuit like you wouldn't believe. And it used to be one review of LA and 15 of New York in the back of every magazine. And it's a lot closer to parity now. I wouldn't say that that's completely reversed, but I would say that it's maybe 10 and 6 or something, you know. And it's, you know, there's LA artists on the covers of Art Forum like all the time, which like never, you know, hasn't happened since they were published here. So there's all kinds of things like that going on this international scale that as partly has to do with how many amazing art schools are here and then people who just sort of stay. But no, the truth of the matter is I think that, and it also has to do with the sort of, to the degree that maybe Europe influenced the height of 20th century New York and East Coast art, that in the 21st century it's Asian and Latin cultures that are influencing contemporary Los Angeles art, if you want to talk about it that way. I would never say that was across the board, because it really sort of transcends that into this global thing. But for the most part, you can sort of make that statement. And I think that that parallels a general interest in the entire world with a surge in interest in Asian and Latin culture in general, as sort of following the way the economic power spread is changing.
Just on the topic of access, I was just wondering, obviously getting out into the community and bringing it to them is great, but also sort of flipping that, I was just wondering what your thoughts were from an institutional standpoint on how sort of giving ownership to people to feel comfortable in larger institutions like the ones we have here, and sort of somehow getting rid of this ivory tower complex that so many museums have inherited and continue to.
Well, we're at the Getty, so we could use some beautiful things that I would just take a moment and say that I'm going to miss Michael Brand, because I think that he was just an amazing presence here at the institution here. And one thing that he did, it happens to be that she's a friend of mine, so I was all excited, but I really think that this was a true success story, is when Michael commissioned Nicole Cohen to do the video installation in the Decorative Arts Gallery a couple of years ago. It was there for almost 2 years. It was called Please Be Seated. And she went into the galleries here. She had a big grant. She went into the galleries here, the French sort of Romance furniture and decor, and then she had access to some rooms at Versailles and the Petit Trianon, which was Marie Antoinette's private residence, where sort of no one can go. And she was allowed to be in there photographing and videoing, and she did this multimedia installation where she designed chairs that were based on those designs, but they were all white, on this all-white room, and so you would sit in them, and there were cameras trained, and it would make it seem like you were sitting in her chair, Marie Antoinette's chair, in the Petit Trianon in this video thing. And, that was cool, and it was great, but what was really great was the sheer volume of hipsters and art people who went into the Decorative Furniture Gallery. Are you kidding, right? Who's going in there? Well, everybody went in there, and then they realized the stuff in there is amazing. And that whatever else you want to say about, the Getty, when it comes to stuff like that level of classical acquisitions, they have the best stuff in the world. And and Michael and I used to talk a little bit about tricking people into going in there with a little bit of contemporary art bait. And then you're in there, and then you accidentally realize that this old stuff is gorgeous, right? And so I think that you could talk about it like it's a trick, which is funny and also true. But it's you can also use language that is more about sort of integration and kind of enticement to engagement and things like that. But I think the way to do it is that kind of model. Do not argue with them. Do not try to convince them, because they are just going to feel like they're getting yelled at for not knowing something that you know. You just meet them halfway, and you give them something that you think they want, and you put it inside something that you know they need, and then on their way to it, they'll figure that out for themselves, because, they're smart, even though they went to business school, not art school, right? I mean, let's face it. So that, that would be sort of my answer at what an institution can do. All set? Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies of the EALA.